Great. So welcome everyone. On behalf of Hog Island Audubon Camp, so glad you're joining us for this first ever live Q&A for our teen birding camps at Hog Island. My name's Eva Lark. I am the Senior Manager of Public Programs for Seabird Institute. I also have been the Program Manager of Hog Island for the past 9 years and work really hand in hand with our teen sessions. So I will be like creating the schedules for the week, working with the instructors, and usually I'm the medical officer on call during the teen weeks, but this year it will be Eric Snyder, my colleague. He will be the medical officer in lieu of me being there. And I'll let Lindsay introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Lindsy Buckland. I'm the office coordinator for the Seabird Institute. I also, as you know, have done registration for Hog Island this year. So I'm really excited to meet everybody in person this year. And yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Lindsay. And for those who have emailed or done camper registration, you've probably been corresponding with Lindsay, and she will continue to be a good point of contact if you have questions, especially if you're emailing that hogisland@audubon.org email address. She's usually the first eyes on those emails. So now you have a face with the name. I'm going to do a very short kind of overview of the teen camps, maybe answer some of your questions that you already have, and then we'll open it up to that Q&A. So let me just share my screen. And does everyone see that? Get a thumbs up out there. Perfect. All right. So Hog Island Audubon Camp, all of you are here because you have registered for a session with us. Can you see the screen that has the presentation on it? Okay, just want to make sure. I have 2 screens, so just making sure that we have everything going good there. We have camps throughout the summer. For the most part, we are at an adult bird watching camp. That's how we started in 1936, and that's mostly what we still do. But for the past 2 decades, we have been running teen birding camps, and so starting in the 2000s and still continuing today. So we got a few decades under our belt. Our program has built on itself and we've kind of fine-tuned it. And then about 5-6 years ago, we decided to start a second teen camp called Mountains to Sea. So we have Coastal Maine Bird Studies, Teens 1, Teens 2, same camp, we just run it 2 weeks. And then we have our Mountains to Sea camp. I'm gonna go into a little bit about the difference between them. And then we also have a Costa Rica teen camp that we run every 2 to 3 years. We're not running it this summer. We ran it last summer. But if people do, when we get to the Q&A, if you want to ask questions about that camp, we do have a few openings left for 2024 next summer. But with our teen birder camps, it doesn't matter if it's Mountains to Sea or Coastal Maine Bird Studies, all of them will spend either the whole week or half the week at our historic Hog Island Audubon Camp. You can see in this photo, it's relatively close to the mainland, but it has the feel of being fairly remote. So we don't have motorized vehicles out there. It's just a kind of a big channel that separates us, but it is, it does have the feeling of a historic kind of Maine camp. Our buildings are from the early 1900s, late 1800s. When you're looking at this photo, most of what we call camp is on this northern peninsula. And so the major buildings here are just on this northern tip. And for most of you, you will be camping, meaning you'll have a room in either this porthole building, it's a big 2-story building here, or there's a little building over here called the Crow's Nest. So for the most of camp, you're going to be kind of in this little zone of the island itself. But you will get to explore the other 300 acres over here on the larger part of Hog Island. One thing that we like to differentiate the 2 camp weeks, the reason we built a new session called Mountains to Sea was we wanted to have a complimentary week that would be a different experience. So it's kind of like an adjacent experience. You can do either or. There's a little bit of overlap, but we try to do a lot of different things so that you can go to one summer and one the next, or you can go to them back to back. So that's kind of the idea between the two. And it doesn't matter which order you do them in, but if you can't get enough of this summer's camp, you can come back and do the other one next summer. So yeah, for the most part, you're going to be here on this northern end. We'll be hiking. We'll be doing lots of boat trips. We'll be exploring the coastal tidal pools. As you can see, it's this rocky outcropping. And we will focus on birds, but honestly, we like to, everything is connected. So we're going to talk about marine life. We're going to talk about botany, and all these things are kind of interwoven. So you can't talk about birds without talking about what they eat or where they live. So hopefully when you walk away, you feel like you've gotten a kind of a big, holistic, big experience, and not just like, I saw some new birds on my life list. We'll focus on coastal Maine bird studies first. So coastal Maine bird studies is the one that's been around the longest, 20 years. And really the big highlight of the week is that you get to land on Eastern Egg Rock. And I will tell you that it took me 8 years working for Hog Island full time to land on this rock. So our teens are very special. Not just anyone gets to land on this really famous piece of ornithology. We only let 3 camp sessions all summer land there. It used to be just the 2 teen weeks. Now we've expanded it. We have 1 adult week that we land. Maybe some donors, some press, like people, journalists who are writing articles. But it's not really an open island. These research islands, we're really excited because this summer is our 50th anniversary of Project Puffin, which is kind of the very beginning, and it started on this island, Eastern Egg Rock. And so when I say that it's a big thing to land on it, it is. It's like, it's definitely, for a lot of teen birders, it's kind of like a rite of passage. They get to land on Egg Rock, but it is like a very special thing. And I wanted to start talking about this camp session with this, because for many of you who are thinking about your packing list, I want you to look at these photos. Okay, and the things that you should notice is that landing is a little tricky. You're going to have to get out of a rowboat onto a very wet, slippery surface. So I tell folks, don't expect to have dry feet. Make sure that you have some type of footwear that is going to protect you. And all of this rockweed that you see is extremely slippery. So you want something that has good traction, like a hiking boot. You do not want something like a pair of Chaco sandals where your toes are exposed, unless you want to be cut by barnacles. Okay. You may see our researchers with them, but these people are highly skilled. They may have many years under their belt walking around on a seabird island. For you guys, though, I really want you to think about having good, sturdy shoes for landing. One other thing about this photo I want you to look at is, do you notice, does anybody have any binoculars in their hands? Are they birding? You'll notice you don't see any gear, because it's all in the backpack. Because I told you this landing is tricky. So you need everything in your backpack. You need your hands free so you can grab a hand or just use your hands to kind of scramble over the rocks. So very important items when you're thinking about your packing list: good sturdy shoes, backpack to put everything in. And then the other thing you notice is most people have on a jacket. It gets cold on the boat. So I think like a nice rain jacket is probably your best bet, because then if it's rainy while we're doing things, you're covered. It also is just that wind protection on the boat. You can always take the layers off. You can't put them on if you don't have them. So that's another thing. You can throw the rain jacket in your backpack when you're on the island, but it's a nice thing to have. The other thing you'll notice is like all these other people here have hats on. And the reason they have those on is because you're getting ready to land on a tern colony with just, a few thousand birds circling around, and they will go for blood. They will go to your head. They will definitely try to do they want to peck the highest thing. So when because their babies and eggs are all around you. So they're just being territorial. But the one thing that we will provide in your hat, we'll give you a little piece of cardboard to stick in your hat, so that when you wear it, the cardboard will give you one little extra layer of protection. But I say, please bring a hat. I find it very essential on a seabird island. Another thing you'll notice in the seabird researcher over here is that you may walk home with a little bit of a seabird colony with you. So if you bought that shiny new fancy jacket, just be okay that the bird's going to poop on you, because most likely it will happen. You want to make sure you know that going in, and it's incredibly loud on a seabird colony, just a cacophony of birds calling. So I don't tell you this to scare you or make you feel like, oh, can I do this trip? By all means, you'll have a lot of fun. It'll be a great experience. You know, look at this group up here. This was last year's landing. Everybody's having a great time. They got their camera gear. They got their optics out because now they've pulled it out of their backpacks. But you want to make sure you're prepared. And so I do want to just kind of stress these critical, what I call packing items: backpack, a jacket, a hat. Those are really, really essential for a seabird colony. Otherwise, you know, all of those items will also be useful throughout the whole week. You have anything to add, Lindsay?
I was saying, we also call that kissed by a tern or a puffin if you get pooped on. So it's just know it's a special thing.
And this picture over here of the seabird researcher, I mean, most likely you're not going to come home looking like that. That's like a seabird researcher often has like an outfit that they put on every day that they just let get really gross. So this is a seabird researcher. It's not a teen camper just coming out for the day. If you look up at this photo up here, for the most part, people are pretty clean. But you know, they can literally kind of shoot that right at you if they want to. So I just want you to be prepared that you may not go unscathed. And one thing you'll notice in this picture up here of all the people, you'll see they're kind of sturdy footwear. So I want to stress those things. And you'll notice they're not sandals. They're mostly kind of hiking boots or, you know, even just tennis shoes that you don't care if they get wet, things like that. It could be that you could have a dry landing. It's just, I don't want you to jump to stay dry. I would rather you put your foot down in the ocean if that's going to be the safest place to put it. So that's the big thing there. For all the camps, your first arrival is going to be right here at the boathouse. For the Coastal Maine Bird Studies, usually your medical check-in is going to be here in the boathouse. So if families are planning to drop off their teens, you can meet with Eric. He'll probably have a little desk right here and you'll do a quick medical check-in. And the one thing is we have a lot of Maine state laws. Many of you may know Maine is very famous for summer camp. I mean, the nickname of our state is Vacation Land. There are summer camps all over the state. Our camp is 87 years old and we're not the oldest. There are camps much older than us, just a few miles away. And because of all these these youth camps, there are a lot of strict rules. And one of those I want to mention here about the medical check-ins. Either you're coming here getting dropped off by a family member, or even if you're coming by a shuttle pickup, or if you're Mountains to Sea, you're getting picked up at the airport, all of you will still have to undergo what we call the medical check-in, which is we review your medical records with you. If you can do that with the teen or with the teen and the family member together, however you'd like. And we're going to need to take your medications from you. The state of Maine is very strict about this. We could lose the ability to run summer camp if we don't adhere to these Maine state laws. And so one thing that we will do is all medication, including like Tylenol, has to be under lock and key. And so you will always have access 24/7. So there'll never be a time, if you wake up at 3 in the morning, splitting headache because you didn't drink enough water, you can walk 2 doors down, knock on that door of your team leader and say, I need X, Y, and Z, and we can go get that for you. So we just have to keep it under that lock and key because otherwise we can't operate. It's not because we don't trust the teenagers. It's not because we don't think that people can take their own medication. There's a lot of things that people talk about. I just want to make sure that that's clear because we're doing it for the safety of everyone involved. I often tell some teens when I check in with them, like, yes, I trust that you would probably take your medication every day, but the reason the state of Maine may not trust that is if your roommate took all of your medicine and got sick, that would be our fault. It wouldn't be your fault. It would be our fault because we're the adults. So I just want to make sure that you guys kind of understand that. That is just, it's a little bit of inconvenience, but just know that you will always have the ability to get any medication you want. And the exception there is going to be asthma inhalers, EpiPens, but still we need to know if you have them. And then there's going to be a dedicated place in your backpack that thing is going to live. That way, if you are having an emergency, a staff member will know where to go in your backpack, what pocket to pull out your EpiPen and help you. But that'll all be part of the medical check-in. And for most of campers, it will be here in the boathouse. For our Mountains to Sea camp, it'll be at the airport. We'll do that right at the beginning. And for Mountains to Sea, because we're not on this location the whole week, we actually have these big medical totes that have a lock on them that we take around. So everything will go with us wherever we go. So Mountains to Sea, like I said, this is a camp session that we developed, about 5 or 6 years ago, mostly because we wanted to, our teen camps are highly popular. You probably know, you folks at home, either you got lucky because you got a scholarship, or if you signed up yourself, you had to sign up on opening day as quick as possible because it sells out. It has been very popular over the years, and we just want to be able to create more experiences, especially for our teen birders, because we find that you guys are, more likely to go into careers. We're able to help you with networking, just staying engaged with you, and hopefully giving you a little bit more of a conservation ethic. That's a big part of our camps, is that we want to not just show you birds, but we want to tell you about how to protect birds and the conservation behind that. So for Mountains to Sea, we're going to still see puffins. So that's the overlap. You can't come to Maine in the summer and not see a puffin. Like, we got to give you the puffin. So we're going to go out on a boat trip. We'll see puffins, but we won't land because we're going to spend some of our week doing other things, like learning more about our decoy manufacturing. Everyone will get to take home a decoy that they get to paint themselves. But the big highlight of the week is going to Borestone Mountain Sanctuary. It's up in basically on the edge of the 100-mile wilderness in Maine, near Moosehead Lake. And it's a really special property because if you thought Hog Island was remote, Borestone is way more remote. And it's kind of uncharted territory. There hasn't been a lot of, even though it's been managed by Audubon, either National Audubon or Maine Audubon, back and forth over the years, we're still learning about the bird life there. And our teen camp specifically has found new breeding records that have never been found before. So it's kind of exciting that we're pushing science in this area when we're there. Like, we found boreal chickadees there, and that was really exciting because the naturalist was like, oh, I didn't even know we had boreal chickadees on the property. Of course, our teen birders are amazing. They're great at finding birds, and they found that. So for that experience, we're going to be in these small boats. And I often tell folks that the closest I've come to like a Harry Potter experience, if you read those books, is going to Borestone, because you go up a mountain, you get in these little boats on an alpine lake, and you go through a channel onto another alpine lake with this big like lodge sitting out on a third alpine lake. And then you get to hike up to the top of this mountain. So it really is, it's a really fun experience. We're going to, this is a great place to talk about geology. We're going to have an emphasis on field sketchbooks or field notebooks. For those who may have participated in the American Birding Association's Young Birder of the Year program, you can actually get a head start because we integrate some of those modules into this camp week because we partner with them. And I actually am one of the judges for that, for the field notebooks especially. So we'll give you some of those tools, and that's something that you may want to get involved with as our partner organization. This is the view from the top of Borestone. You can tell that this is a great site for like a hawk watch. We're looking for peregrines, red-tailed hawks, anything flying by. And then of course, the hike up there is beautiful. Again, you're going to want nice sturdy shoes. You're going to backpack because we're going to take our lunches with us, have lunch up at the top. We're going to spend some time in our vans and hit different locations across the state as we go. So it'll be great to have a backpack that you have like everything you need for the day. And then your luggage is like, you only need to get in that at night when we're in the lodge. So kind of going back to Hog Island, I told you there's no motorized vehicles, but there is a lot of trails. Just giving you a frame of reference of what it looks like. You'll notice for Mountains to See, you guys will probably circumnavigate the whole island. For Mountains to See, we'll probably just do kind of the shorter loop on the larger island. But we'll all be on the big Snow Goose 3, which is the boat that we use to go out to Egg Rock. It's a big lobster boat with a flat back bottom, so you can see all around you. You can get those great views of seabirds, and Captain Joe is really great at backing the boat in, flipping the boat around. So, if you have a good camera, bring a good camera. You're gonna get great looks at birds from the boat, and Joe's really good about shifting the boat around so both sides will get the same look. These are just a few shots from around camp so you can kind of see what to expect. This 2-story building over here is the porthole. This will be one of the main dormitories for Coastal Maine Bird Studies. The layout of that is every room has 2 beds or 1 bed. There's 2 rooms that have 3 beds, but it's pretty small. So the way it works is you will probably have a roommate, and then on each floor of the building is a big bathroom that has multiple stalls, multiple sinks, and multiple showers. And each shower has like a little changing room and then a shower, kind of like if you've been to a state park. So think about that. It's not like it's shared bathrooms, but there's that little bit of privacy factor, especially around showering. And we will expect everyone to shower at camp. We have a rule that you have to shower. If come Wednesday, everybody will have showered. Or you can shower every night. Not everybody needs those rules, but some of you may. Packing lists. We've already talked a little bit about the packing list. You've already gotten the email with this, or you should have, and if you didn't, definitely let us know. I sent kind of a welcome email talking about the digital paperwork, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And it also included a PDF to this packing list. It's also on our website. But just wanted to mention it here, show you a few more pictures of camp, and just reiterate some of these points about packing. You'll notice here in this picture, people do have sandals on. I really like these closed-toe sandals because you're less likely to get what we call barnacle rash, which is when you trip over the rock and the barnacles scrape you. So I would recommend something like a Keen or some type of sandal that has a toe on it, or just an old pair of tennis shoes that you're going to throw away or not use again, or throw in the washing machine and wash. We will be doing some tidal pool activities in both camp sessions, so I would recommend bringing something. We don't allow swimming. We don't have a lifeguard. We're not we don't have all the certifications for swimming, but we will be doing some deep water wading. We have big seine nets that we can pull in Coastal Maine Bird Studies. For Mountains to See, we're more likely to be using dip nets. But I will say, even though it's going to be cold, bring something you don't mind getting wet. It may be also good to bring a plastic bag or something to put your grungy, dirty clothes in throughout the week. So that's just a little point, because we're on the coast of Maine. We're going to do some fun activities with the rocky tidal pooling. We're also going to be going to different locations to go hiking. And again, you'll notice everyone has backpacks. If for some reason you don't have a backpack, you need to borrow one. We usually have like 1 loaner, and that's it. So just be prepared. Make sure you have something to throw your gear in, because I think we went over most of the major things, but having like a layer that you can take on and off, put in your backpack, a water bottle, very essential. You must have something to drink out of while we're going on all-day field trips. We will have a big cooler to refill, but you need to fill yours up every morning. We have lots of places around camp that you can do that. And then, especially for mountains to see, I would say you need a good flashlight or headlamp. You could use a cell phone, and we'll talk about cell phones here in a minute. But just think about if it's raining and you're trying to go down the trail using your cell phone light, it may not be the thing you want to do. So just think about that when you're trying to decide, because I've heard people say, well, I didn't bring a flashlight because I have my cell phone. That's all good until it's pouring down rain, and you may not want to be on a trail trying to find your way when it's slippery and wet on the ground. So I would say if you have a flashlight, it doesn't have to be a nice one, just something you can walk to your cabin, because we have no lights at camp. If the weather is good, we'll do some astronomy. We have a really big telescope. It's a beautiful place where you can see the Milky Way on a clear night. You can see more stars than maybe you've ever seen before. We're not quite dark sky because there are some nearby islands that you can see kind of residual light from, but it's pretty close if we get a really good night. And when we're at Borestone for the Mountains to See session, there is no light. It is so dark up there. They do have some solar panels, so you can charge like a device, but they don't have like, we have electricity up there, but we'll also be using gas for like the stove and things like that. It's not the type of energy that you would have like on Hog Island. On Hog Island, we have lots of light switches and lots of different places to plug in your devices. At Borestone, it's much more off the grid, and I would be prepared not to have cell phone service at Borestone. At Hog Island, you probably will have cell phone service. I would say up till about 2019, you didn't, but they've put in some more cell phone towers. So you will have more. At Hog Island, you'll have Wi-Fi. So families out there, especially you parents, I know you guys want to get a check-in from your kids. They can give you a little Wi-Fi text or something if they have a phone. You may or may not get them on service. So just be prepared for that. I often find that it's not my teenagers, it's my parents who are like, I'm waiting for the phone. So parents out there, just be aware. If your kid is at Borestone at Mountains to See, no cell phone service, none. We do have they have an emergency land phone there that we will use if there is an emergency. They may be able to get a text occasionally if we go up to the top of the mountain, but I just want to make sure that folks know that in advance. And then while we're talking about cell phones, super important, we do have a rule at camp that at 10 o'clock at night, everybody's cell phone is taken and put on a charger in the hallway or in the teen leader's room. Couple of reasons behind that. One, you guys are probably going to have a roommate. I don't want you keeping your roommate awake. Two, we do have Wi-Fi at Hog Island, so I don't want you watching video games or playing whatever or showing each other photos. We're just going to take it away. And three, most importantly, you need the sleep because we're going to have you up at very early in the morning. Some of the optional bird walks start at 5:30. So 10 o'clock, we're going to take the cell phones, we're going to plug them in. And this is also for my families out there, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever is your guardian. Don't be looking for a text message after 10 o'clock. Your kid won't have their cell phone. If you need to get a hold of us, we will give you an emergency number that you can call a staff member. But, you know, we want to make sure that we're going to do lights out. We're going to try to go to sleep. And typically, by the end of the week, it's never an issue. Some of the kids give me their phone at 9 because they're going to bed. But I just want you guys to know in advance, and you don't have any surprises. I will send it in an email, so you kind of have that as a just a reminder. Few more things about packing lists. You'll notice sleeping bag for cool weather sessions. You don't need a sleeping bag. We will have optional, we'll have wool blankets available, but you guys know who you are. Those of you that are cold natured, if you are one of those people that can't stay warm, you may want to bring something. My suggestion is to wear warm clothes to bed. I wear long johns to bed. That's how I get around it. Actually, my big trick is I wear a hoodie because you can cinch it around your head, keep your head warm at night. So you don't have to like go out and buy a sleeping bag. You could just wear some sweatpants and a hoodie and you'll be just as warm. But just think about that, wearing, nice warm socks at night. Put on clean socks at night. That way they're more likely to keep your feet warm. Or you can bring a sleeping bag, kind of up to you. Some of you are driving, some of you are flying. Hopefully you don't have to go out and buy a lot of gear for this. This is just a suggested packing list. You don't need everything on there. I've seen people come with less, but I want you, the reason we made this packing list is so that you are prepared. And for some people, they're like, I would rather know like the wish list than not know anything. Perfect. I think that's pretty much, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. We will be providing bedding, sheets, pillows, bedspread, towel, washcloth, extra wool blanket, anything else that you need to sleep, make sure you bring it. And then you'll notice down here, these toiletries, you'll need to bring shampoo and toothpaste and all that stuff. Snacks are provided. We will have snacks at all of our camp sessions, but you know, some of you I know need a little extra nourishment. I know some of you have high metabolism. So if you want to bring a snack, definitely feel free. One thing that will happen is we will email you in May. You'll notice that we have a deadline for paperwork in May. And one of the big reasons is about nut allergies. So I would just be cautious and try to bring nut-free everything. If we have someone with a severe nut allergy, I wouldn't want you to have brought a bunch of a big Ziploc bag full of nuts and then you get your, you know, your roommate sick, because especially like peanut allergies can be aerosol in the air. A lot of people don't realize that. All right, let's talk about medical forms. Kind of goes right into, you know, that discussion about allergies. A lot of people ask, why do we have so many medical forms? Well, we are going to take you offshore. If you're going to coastal Maine bird studies, you're going to literally be 7 miles offshore on an island. So we need to know some of your medical conditions. But this physical here, this form, is the healthcare recommendation by a licensed medical professor for personnel. You can have your doctor fill this form out, or you can have a copy of your last physical. So either or. We made a form just so that people would have something if they're going to the doctor. If your physical doesn't have all these parts on it, I would want to make sure we capture that information. What are you going to say, Lindsay?
Just saying we want to make sure that the physical isn't expired as well.
Yeah, so your physical, and this is going back to that state of Maine regulation. We want to make sure that you have this physical. We are required to have a copy of your physical. And that's just a requirement that we have to have. We don't do this for our adult sessions. It's only for our youth camps. It's not for family camp because you have an adult with you. It's just for our teen camps because they fall under a different kind of category of youth camp. So if I was a parent, if I already had a physical, you could scan it and upload it, but you may want to look this over and you could fill it out if there's parts on there that we need to know. The biggest thing is really about medications, EpiPens, things of that sort, allergies, really important. And then going to Lindsay's point is about the being acceptable physical has to be within 1 year of your camp week. So if you're coming to camp with us on mid-June and your last physical last year was done on June 1st, it's expired. You need a new one, right? It needs to be within 1 year of the camp start date. So just think about that. Make sure that your physical, if you're not filling this form out, that you have a physical. If you got a physical in July, you know, July 15th, great. Even though it's almost a year ago, you will still be acceptable because it's within the 1 year window. So just make sure that all of this information is filled out. And then the other medical paperwork is really just for us to be prepared. We want to know if you're known to have different conditions, because we will want to make sure we're keeping a closer eye on you. For instance, if you're prone to having seizures, that's really good for us to know, because let's say you fall out of the boat and you're having a seizure, we need to know that. That's different than someone just, accidentally kind of slipping. We need to know that ahead of time. So that's kind of why we have all these medical forms. This section here about diet and nutrition, that's important because our chefs are amazing. They make everything pretty much from scratch. So they are really great at special diets, meaning making food that is vegan or gluten-free or vegetarian, lactose intolerant, any of these kind of things. But we need to know how many people have those things so that they can meal plan. And because we're on an island, we have to meal plan a couple of weeks in advance to get the groceries to us. So that's another reason why we have those deadlines to get paperwork in sooner, because our chefs really need to think about what they're planning. And we do try to source as local as possible, use local farms, and all that kind of wrapped up into the diet part. And then for allergies, we talk about with diet and nutrition, like if you're allergic to nightshade, which is like tomatoes, people are allergic to that. We would want to make sure we know that specifically so we could just keep it completely out of the kitchen. So that's the difference between like, oh, I'm vegetarian, but allergy is like even more so we need to be careful because vegetarian, great, we can do that. But if you have an allergy, it just has a new set of protocols in the kitchen that we have to adhere to. Gluten-free, we can do. We are not a licensed like celiac kitchen because we don't have two separate kitchens. We only have one kitchen. Our head chef and our sous chef are both gluten-free. So they're very good at making that type of food, but we can't 100% be certain that there isn't some wheat particle from when we baked bread the week before in the kitchen. What they will do is if we have gluten-free people that we know have a really big intolerance, we will wipe down surfaces, we will do our due diligence, but we're not a certified kitchen if you have extreme celiac condition. Also, with diet, if you want to talk to our head chef, you can do that. We can arrange a time in May for you guys to have a phone call if you have any concerns. So I would just reach out and say, hey, I filled out the paperwork online, but I have a few concerns and would like to talk to our chef. Alice will call you if you provide a cell phone number and you guys can talk about the ins and outs because she will be able to give you more precisely, the information that you're maybe trying to find. All right, so I'm not going to talk anymore about this. If you guys have questions, we can revisit it. The teen reference form, we often get a lot of questions about this form. In order to be like accepted in the camp, is the two things have to happen. One, you register and pay in full. Two, you fill out all this paperwork. And if you don't fill out this paperwork, you can't come to camp. Like if you forget to upload a physical, we can't have you on the island. We're going to need that physical uploaded before you come over in the boat. So that's why some people often ask the question of like, am I accepted into the camp? You're accepted officially when you've paid in full and you filled out all your paperwork. So make sure you do those two things. As long as you do that, you're in the camp. We just want to stress how important this paperwork is because we can't legally have you in our care without it, especially like the medical paperwork. The teen reference form, honestly, the big thing with this is because of the way we run our camp, our instructors really want to know who you are, and they want to be able to tailor the camp session to all of our individual teens. We also want you guys to come together and become friends, or at least enjoy being together for the week. And one way we can do that is by trying to learn more about you. We're going to send out a short survey for you to fill out, for your parents to fill out. And then this is the third one. Another person not in your family is going to tell us a little bit about you. And that's going to help us try to figure out how to make this the best experience for you that week. All right. Travel forms, and then we're almost done with this presentation. I'm going to open up a Q&A. We got two different ones, Coastal Maine Bird Studies 1 and 2, Mountains to Sea. Big things here. Let's start with Mountains to Sea. It's a little bit more straightforward. Everybody is going to meet at the airport, and everybody is going to be dropped back off at the Portland airport. The reason we do that is because when we're coming from Boorstone, we're going to literally come from the mountains straight to the airport. And similar, when we leave the airport on arrival day on Sunday, we're going to go to Hog Island, but we don't want to have all this staged arrival. We want everyone to start at the same time at Hog Island together for Mountains to Sea. It's just the way we run the program. So start and end time for Mountains to Sea will be at the Portland Jetport. Drop off will be there. You can drop off by car. That's completely fine. You can, there's actually a, I think I'm almost certain that you can be there for a very short amount of time and you don't have to pay, or you have to pay like $1 or $2. It's very nominal. So we'll meet at baggage claim. If you've been to the Portland Jetport, you know it's an international airport because it goes to Canada, maybe somewhere else, but it's small. It's a very small airport. So when you come down out of your gate, down the escalator, there is 2 carousels at baggage claim, side by side. That's it. That's the whole airport. So we're going to meet there at the carousels. So for those coming on flights, they'll come in. For those who are coming by car, you'll just walk in, come to baggage claim. We'll get you checked in. And then when we get everybody, we'll get in our 15 passenger vans. We may even do some birding on the way to Hog Island. That's the nice thing about that. Same thing on the return. We'll all come back straight from Boorstone back to the airport. Everybody will be picked up, or if you're flying, we will check you in. So our staff will help you check into your flight. We'll walk you upstairs and we're going to wave goodbye to you at security. For people getting picked up by cars, we would like for you to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning because all the people going on their plane will be gone. We'll need to get back to Hog Island to unpack a van full of gear. So just make sure you're adhering to these times. That'll be really important. And if you're coming by plane, it would be nice to know what airline, your flight number. That way we can be tracking if you're coming in late or if your flight's delayed. And then we can decide to make that decision on how we're going to pick you up. Coastal Maine Bird Studies is a little bit different. Both of the Coastal Maine Bird Studies run concurrently with an adult session. And because of that, we're going to do all the arrival together with the adults. So if you're coming by car, you drop off at our physical boat house that you saw, the picture that's in my little screensaver behind me, you're going to drop off right there. So between 1 and 3 o'clock, dropping off at the dock, or if you want to come by airplane, you can do that. And we will, we have $100 transport fee, but we will pick you up from the airport and take you back. That $100 is much cheaper than you would find with like a car service. It also means that our staff will pick you up and drop you off and will help you check in. You do have to be 15 years old to fly independently. And that's because when you're 14, some airlines make an adult sit at the gate with you. We don't have a lot of staff, so we can't sit at the gate with every 14-year-old. So that's why we say you have to be 15 to do that transport service. It really comes down to being able to say goodbye to our teenagers at security versus having to sit there for hours until their plane takes off. Again, once we check them into the airplane, there's like 1 terminal. Am I right, Lindsay? Is there 2 or 1? It's small.
There's an international and then a domestic. So yeah, there's 2, but yeah, it's small.
Very small.
I was also going to mention there's a cell phone lot. So if you do have to pit stop, you can stop at the cell phone lot and usually that's free. So, but yeah, it's tiny.
It's very tiny. So once we see them through security, they go through and then there's like some couches and some rocking chairs. It's a pretty laid back, small little place. So then they'll just hang together. Usually the teens all hang out until they fly. So again, just make sure you're adhering to these times. And if you want to do that airport pickup, please let us know if you haven't paid for it and we can add that. onto your registration and get that taken care of. And then we have a lot of information on our website. Go to hogisland.audubon.org. There's a frequently asked questions page. There's links to all different types of info, a bird checklist, eBird checklist, sample schedules, field trip destinations, all types of info. Feel free to just explore around. I'm leaving you with this cute little puffling chick. And for those who, all the parents and guardians who won't be joining us, if you go to our website, you can actually go to our live cameras and see a puffin chick on our cam down in the burrow, which is kind of a cool way to see what that's all about. You can learn a little bit more about seabirds. All right, why don't we open it up? If you have a question that we didn't cover, you can either drop it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask. Don't be shy. You have Lindsay and I to answer any question that you may have.
I was just wondering kind of how low the temperature gets up in the mountains.
Great question. Yeah. So in the mountains, yeah, it can be a little bit cold, especially at night. Again, it's like making sure you have warm clothes at night. I think, you know, you can look up Monson, M-O-N-S-O-N, Monson, Maine, and look at their average temperatures. What I would do is I would do the 10-day forecast.
Okay.
Because Maine weather, see Lindsay over there shaking her head, it's all over the place. So I tell people you can get all 4 seasons in one day in July, in the warmest, or August, the warmest month of the year. It could be incredibly foggy and cold. It could be rainy. It could be hot, so hot. And at Borestone, we've had a mix. Some years we're deep wading in the Alpine Lake because we're so hot. And some years we are just dipping our toes in because it's cold and we have our jackets on. I would definitely say, you know, for Borestone, again, it's like at night, we're not going to do any night hiking you know, we'll go on a night hike probably at Hog Island, but we probably won't do one at Borestone because it's so rocky. It's a little hard to do at night. But we have this big wood burning stove at Borestone that we'll all get around and warm up. And if it's raining, we can also dry our shoes out. So we'll be at the big lodge. Any other questions? I see some in the chat here. So let's see. Do you do any bird banding at Teen Study? Yeah, Coastal Maine Bird Studies. Week 1 and 2, we will be doing some bird banding. So Anthony Hill will be there for both sessions. Anthony's a licensed bird bander. Usually we do it in different places. Sometimes we just do it around camp, which is nice because we can recapture some birds we banded in the past. Sometimes we band on the mainland. But yeah, for Coastal Maine Bird Studies, we will do some bird banding in both of those weeks. When we're running concurrently with an adult camp, you also get a little bit of the flavor of that adult camp. So for Puffin Islands, if you're in Coastal Maine Bird Studies 1, the instructors for Puffin Islands are all seabird researchers. So you're going to get a lot of seabird info at like the night. We have a night lecture after dinner. For Coastal Maine Bird Studies 2, you're going to be running concurrently with field ornithology. So you'll be getting more information about kind of more ornithology, but not seabird focused, probably more passerines or raptor focused. So that's kind of the difference there. For Mountains to See, we just have a whole big staff that are just dedicated to the teens. And we're really fortunate because we get Doug Hitchcock. He is Maine Audubon's birder, basically. He does all their bird programming. So he has a wealth of knowledge about Maine. And that's really cool because when we go from Hog Island to Borestone, we will jump from bird spot to bird spot all the way up. So we'll spend a full day getting up there, hitting all the bird spots, and Doug knows where everything is, which is great. But yeah, we kind of have an all-star cast for that session for Mountains to See. Let's see, what else is in the chat? For the Mountain Sea Camp, we are staying on the island the first night. So we'll be on Hog Island first couple nights, and then midweek we'll go up to Borstone and we'll be there the last couple nights. California, anyone flying from California? Yeah, a lot of times we have a crew usually coming from Boulder, from Denver. We have a crew coming from California. Often they're on the same flight because Portland Airport is so small. There's only going to be a couple of flights you can get. Let's see what else. Good question. For teen coastal Maine bird studies, do you think it matters if they meet at the airport or at the camp? Do you do anything, the shuttle, that a camper might miss out on? No, I would say that the difference is if you get dropped off at camp, you can get dropped off at 1 o'clock. So you could be on the island a lot longer. So some people like that because they can be birding or settling into their, stuff. If you're coming by the shuttle, we won't leave the airport until 1:30 usually. So like we want everyone's flights to be there between 11 and 1. We'll leave around 1:30. That means we get to Hog Island about 3. So that's your big difference. If you get dropped off, you could get dropped off as early as 1 o'clock. If you come by the shuttle, you're going to probably get there about 3 o'clock. You're not going to really miss much because everybody's going to be streaming in at different times. But I always have one person out there that wants to be like the first person on the boat and the last one off the boat. And if you're one of those, that would be the only advantage of being dropped off versus doing a shuttle. But you're not going to miss like any activity, maybe because, you're not even going to really miss like getting to know other campers, because if you're coming on a shuttle, you're going to meet the other people on the shuttle. You're going to be on a little van ride together. And if you're on Hog Island, you're going to meet people on the island. So, I wouldn't say there's like a huge advantage or disadvantage. Let's see. Lindsay, feel free to jump in if you have anything.
Been great so far.
How many pairs of shoes or boots? Yeah, I really think 2 is like the minimum. I've seen this happen before where the first day of camp, it's like I don't know what happened. It's like a flood, like it will rain. And then your shoes are wet all week. And that's just super frustrating. So I say 2, because then you have like the wet pair and the dry pair. Yeah, I don't think you need to bring a whole lot more than that, but that's like, I would say 2 pairs of shoes are really nice. I did once have a camper who bought 2 pairs of shoes, and one pair was a really old pair of sandals and the bottom came right off. And we're like, that's okay, she's got the boots. And then the next thing you know, the boot, one of them just fell apart. So make sure you're bringing good shoes. You don't want both of your shoes to fall apart on you, because I'll tell you, we duct taped it and we made it work, but it wasn't pretty. And they were walking around with mostly duct tape on their feet. But yeah, so bring at least a couple pair shoes. Hair dryers, great question. You can bring a hair dryer. Here's the thing, at Borstone, we don't have the electricity to do a hair dryer. At Hog Island, you may flip the breaker. So you can bring one. If you flip the breaker, it's not a big deal. We can flip the breaker back, but don't be surprised, if it happens. If I know some of you guys have, I don't have any hair, so it's hard for me to know, but like if you have a lot of hair, I get it. If that's wet, it keeps you cold, takes forever to dry, and you are in Maine where nothing dries, right? So like, that's a good point too. Like we will give you a towel, but if you want to bring a little travel towel, great. Because if your towel gets super wet, it just, you never know what type of week you're going to have. So that's why it's good for you to, bring whatever you feel will be comfortable. The nice thing about both Hog Island and Boarstone, we're literally rolling onto a pontoon boat. So you can roll your big rolling suitcase onto the island. Doesn't matter, because what we're going to do when we get on the island, so we're going to put it in a big wagon and we're going to roll it down the trail. And so if you want to bring a big rolling suitcase, that's fine. Just make sure you have a backpack so you're not carrying that big rolling suitcase everywhere you go. But yeah, try to bring what's going to make you feel comfortable. And I would say, like, luggage is not issue. You can bring a big piece of luggage. It's not a big deal. You may have to go up a flight of stairs with it, so make sure you can pick it up. But you can bring a big piece of luggage. It won't be a problem. Same thing at Boarstone, even though we have that kind of crazy thing where we hike a mountain and get in all these boats, there is a 4x4 truck that we put all of our luggage into, and the 4x4 truck goes up the mountain with just like, a Dr. Seuss amount of luggage, and gets up there, and then we put it into those little boats, and it's fine. So again, you can still have a big piece of luggage, and it's not going to affect anything.
I can touch on the scholarship one if that helps, Eva.
Yeah.
Question in the chat. So the scholarship piece, it really depends on the scholarship provider. So check in with your whoever you're receiving your scholarship from to see what they have provided, because sometimes they have paid for it, but other times that isn't the case. So just check in with them and see what they say.
Yeah, great. And then you could always pay for it separate if that's what you need to do. And then you would just reach out. Lindsay will take care of you. If we have a question about food allergies. So with Coastal Maine Bird Studies 1 and 2, we do run concurrently with those adult programs. That's completely fine. We're gathering dietary information on all the campers, regardless if they're adults or not. And so it's not any harder than a week where we have 50 adults. When we have 50 adults, we still have a ton of dietary restrictions. It's not much different than when we have 30 adults and 15 teens. And if anything, it's sometimes, it's a little bit, it really varies. Yeah. So every week is different. But our chef, we're really lucky. She was our chef last year. We have the same sous chef that's from last year. And our sous chef has been with us for many years prior in some capacity. So we have some knowledge there, plus they're amazing chefs. And I don't know how they do it. I'm not a chef, but they take all of your dietary restrictions. And usually, I will say, is that there are often 2 meals. So it's like so we serve buffet and we have a menu board and all the ingredients are there. And that way, if you can look at that menu board, and if the main entree is like chicken, that you can get all the parts of that meal, but you're going to say, no, I don't want the chicken. And there's a special diet table that's going to have a whole nother entree. So like there is a way to go through the line. And so they'll tailor the menu. And then everybody that does have a dietary restriction, even if it's something minor, like a vegetarian, when you get to Hog Island, you'll get a little ticket and you're going to meet the chef, because she wants to know who you are, because she's going to take special care of you. And I'm talking about, like, if you're gluten-free, you're getting a gluten-free dessert. It's not like one of those places where it's like, oh man, they get all the good things. Sometimes I think our dietary restrictions get even better food because they really like to take care of folks, and you're going to have the same amount of options. So you're just inserting different entrees, or they'll have one dessert that's for these special diets and another dessert that's for everyone else. Any other questions? I did see someone say that they came in late and they wanted to know about those arrival times. So the easiest way, if you forget, is look at the travel forms. You remember the travel forms have all of the arrival information on there. If you're coming by car, it tells you what time. If you're coming by plane, it tells you what time. Same thing for departure. So when you guys start booking your travel or thinking about driving up, look at your travel forms. They're the first place you can look about travel planning, and you can use these as a frame of reference for when to arrive, when to depart, when to pick up, anything like that. So
I'll jump in for just a second, Eva, and say that the travel form can be found in Camp Doc. And some folks may have gotten a late invite to Camp Doc. Sorry about that. We're working out some system glitches, but so if you haven't received an invite from Camp Doc, please reach out, let us know. I may just forward your email to the Camp Doc team, because they will need to suss out like some of the issues that are going on, but everybody should have been entered and in Camp Doc at this point. So if you haven't, reach out, and that invitation may be answered by Camp Doc. Don't be surprised if that's the case. If it's something that hasn't been entered, I'll reach out personally and let you know what's going on there. But so yeah, just wanted to mention that piece. But yeah, Camp Doc is a big part of the next phase of registration. So make sure that you get that to 100% completion. Otherwise, you will get reminder emails from Camp Doc letting you know that you are at 97% complete. So, and if you have any issues, they have a really wonderful customer service team on hand. There's only so much I can help with on the Camp Doc side of things, but again, feel free to reach out to me. I'll let you know if it's something I can help with, or if it's not, I'll pass it on to the Camp Doc team. But you're not bothering us by any means. Reach out if you have questions.
Yeah. Finley, great question about free time. We actually don't give a lot of free time, mostly because we want to make sure you're having like the best experience ever. And we're going to give you as many opportunities to learn and have fun and to go on these amazing experiences. But it does mean that we're not going to have a lot of room for free time. That being said, there is some times around meals. So in the morning, another thing about mornings, some of the early bird walks at the beginning of the week may be mandatory, but often the ones at the end of the week are optional. So when you're exhausted, you can sleep in on Thursday morning. You can sleep in on Wednesday morning. Monday and Tuesday, we may make you get up and do some fun things with us, but we do realize that we also want you not to be exhausted, right? So we will provide sleeping time like Wednesday and Thursday morning, which a lot of people really want. As far as other free time, let's say we go on an all-day boat trip. We get back to Hog Island. There may be like an hour before dinner. That free time is for you to shower, to get out whatever you need that night, to lay on the bed for a minute, or go, maybe you just want to go sit in a chair or a hammock. But it's not a lot of time. It's a small amount of free time. Kind of the same thing after dinner. Around lunch, we don't have as much free time. A lot of times we eat picnic lunches while we're out. So we'll be on a field trip all day and we'll have the coolers full of food. But usually like around dinner and sometimes around breakfast, if you want to sleep in. Some of you may not want to sleep in, and that's fine too. You know, you can get up and have a little free time in the morning. Like on Thursday morning, you can have a little free time in the morning, but we're going to give you some parameters. And what that means is we're going to say, this is the area that you can hang out. And if you remember that picture of the peninsula, it makes it kind of easy because we can say like anything from this building all the way to the end of the peninsula. But there are certain parts of camp that are off limits, and that's for your safety, like behind the kitchen or back where the workshop is. Like some of those areas you can't go because we don't want you to get hurt, or there could be rusty nails. So there are some kind of out of bounds areas, but we will establish like what your boundary is. And when you have that kind of downtime, you can be in that boundary. Great question, Sarah, about waking up. You remember the cell phone thing? I'm taking your cell phones. So that means we're going to wake you up in the morning because you're not going to have your cell phone on you for alarm clock. Yeah, we'll do a wake up call. And what that means is there will be typically like 2 wake up calls. So there'll be like, especially when we get towards the end of the week, when we have that optional early morning, it'll be like the wake up call if you want to do early morning bird walk, and then the wake up call if you really want to wake up for breakfast. Another thing that will happen is because each floor of the building has a teen leader, which means an instructor has their own room, but they're on the same floor as you. That way you can go to them like at any time in the night if you're feeling sick or you need something. But they're also going to be the one who is going to wake you up. So you could just tell them like, hey, Emma, I want to sleep in tomorrow. And she won't knock on your door. So that's also, or you can say, I only want to come to breakfast. And she'll be like, okay, everybody's getting up for breakfast at this time. So I will say that there is like, we do want to be on time for our meals. Our chefs put so much time and effort and love in making really good food, but it's only good if it's, warm. And we don't want you to come to breakfast late and not get breakfast. Because if you come too late, breakfast is gone and you're not going to get it. And then you're going to be on a boat trip and 2 hours later, you're going to be starving. So we do require you to come to meals. And that's mostly because you need to eat, because we're going to be hiking. We're going to be out on boats all day. We're going to be in the sun all day, which takes out a lot of our energy, especially if we're not used to being outside all the time. A lot of you are used to being in school where you maybe don't go outside. So we're going to be outside from sunrise to sunset, or even past sunset. So yeah, make sure that you're eating and getting up in the morning. eBird checklist. Yeah, let me talk about that. So we will be doing eBird checklists. We will basically we'll have a designated person. Usually it's one of the team leaders who's doing the checklist for the whole group. If you know your eBird name, great. You can be on every checklist in real time. If you don't know your eBird name or your eBird email, that's fine. It just means that you won't get the eBird checklist until a week later when you get the wrap-up email. So if you want the eBird checklist in real time, make sure you know either your email address you use for eBird or your username. And if you don't know where eBird is, that's completely fine too. You don't need it. We'll do the old school paper bird checklist as well. We're going to do both because we like talking about all the fun things we saw. Camera policy. There's not really camera policy. You can bring cameras. I've seen everything from big rigs to just cell phone. So you can bring a camera. You can take photos. There are some rules about like being on the boat, right? So if you're on the boat, you stay on your side of the boat. You don't like run to the other side. There's some boat rules, and that way, that's where the boat flips around. So you can get camera views on both sides. Same thing like with the group, like you can take photos. That's great. We love that. And we love it too if you want to share photos with everyone. We'll have a photo sharing, like a Google Photos so that we can all share. So yeah, bring your cameras. No major policy there. Maybe, William, if you have a specific question about that, let me know. Natalie has a great question. Can teens communicate before camp? This one gets a little tricky, right? Because you guys are underage and I can't just be giving out all your personal information. So that's like, this is always a conundrum. I haven't quite figured it out. If you guys have good suggestions, like send me an email, because I would love for you guys to like know who's coming and coordinate transportation. But I can't like give out your personal info. And also I can't be a trip planner and Lindsay can't be a trip planner because we have 400 people coming to Hog Island this summer. So even though like these two teen camps we are really hands-on about, we probably give you a lot more time and attention than a lot of our adults. We still can't like facilitate all those one-on-ones. But if anyone has a great idea, I would love to know. I don't know, maybe I've thought about like, there's a couple of Facebook groups that that a lot of young birders are on. Red polling is one. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I've thought about putting like a question on there, like who's coming to Hog Island? And then people could answer and then you could see yourselves, but not all of you use Facebook, right? So I don't know. I don't have a good solution. Waiting for it. And if you have the solution, let me know. But yeah, I would say if you are on any groups with other teen birders, especially social media, that would be one way that you could just ask, like, is anyone going to Hog Island camps this summer? Because there are going to be 40 of you, 40 plus, almost 50 of you coming to us this summer between the 3 camps. But I don't want to give out names and information, and my parents and guardians out there are like, yeah, I don't want you giving out my kid's email. So that's kind of the reason. Now, I will say that once you get to camp, we will do a email exchange. So you can do that, and we will facilitate that on the back end of camp. And that'll include like you can put your Instagram handles or whatever you want, or TikTok or what, I don't know, whatever the kids are into, you can share it. We'll have a way and you guys can sign up on it and we'll send that out. And then that way you guys can stay in contact with each other. And we've had some groups do different things too, where they like start their own things independently, and that's fine too. You know, we had one group do a WhatsApp. We had another group that did like a text exchange, but we will do like an email exchange and social media exchange on the last night of camp. What else? Any other questions? Lindsay, any other feedback about camp docs that you may want to cover? I mean, we kind of covered some of the major parts, but.
Yeah, just, I mean, I guess make sure that you fill it out to 100% completion. Like I mentioned before, that's going to be important. If you have any allergies or any medical restrictions whatsoever, please add that into your health profile. The additional forms that you need to complete to finish registration are included in Camp Doc, like Eva mentioned, the travel form. So just, you know, just make sure you work your way through all of the bullet points. And yeah, there's, again, feel free to reach out to me for customer service support on that. If I need to forward that over to Camp Doc, I will. But if I can help you, I'll try, as most of you know. So, but yeah, we're excited to see you all so soon.
Shear warders, there's always a chance. I would say, other than puffins, you know, we'll get roseate, Arctic, and common terns. There's always a chance for razorbill, sometimes a common myrrh, lots of guillemots, black guillemots. We've seen things like Corey shearwarder before, storm petrel, it's a good one, Leach's storm petrel. Lots of breeding birds up here. So on the island, we have breeding black-throated green warblers, purple finches, red crossbills. You know, those are the types of birds that maybe you don't have in your normal vicinity. Yeah, you can look at eBird though. Hog Island has a hotspot. We also have a checklist on our website. And then I will just do a little plug for our Hog Island camp. I mean, our Costa Rica Hog Island camp. That camp is going to be in 2024 and registration is open. We're about 2/3, 3/4 full. It's designed to be just like a Hog Island camp. So early morning bird walk, breakfast, all day field trip, dinner, bird checklist, lecture, do it all again. But we're going to be going to the lowlands, coastal, like lowlands, and the kind of mid-elevation Arenal region. And yeah, if you're interested in that, feel free to look on our website. It's a really fun week. We do have, we often have people do scholarships to Costa Rica. So you can reach out to your local Audubon chapter bird club. I'm often able to entice them with some matching funds. So if they want to reach out, let me know. And yeah, it's a really fun week. And the really nice thing is it shows the full pattern of migration, because a lot of our breeding birds, that's where they're going to winter, black and white warblers, and you know, just some of these incredible small passerines that are breeding on Hog Island, but spend, you know, half their life in the tropics. So we designed that week to be very much like a Hog Island camp. So if you like this one, it's another opportunity. It is really we're really into learning and trying to give you all these experiences. We'll do boat trips, van trips, hiking, kind of very similar feel. So think about that, keep it in mind, and know that there is scholarship funds if you need those as well. Do you think the Costa Rica trip will be shut by the time we finish Hog Island this summer? Good question. I don't know. That camp does run older. So it's 15 years old to 20 or 19, 15 to 19. I do take some 20-year-olds. I'm way more lenient with the Costa Rica. We don't have all the main state regulations, so we can be a little bit more flexible with our age range. And we can also be a little bit more flexible with, like, we don't have all this paperwork because we have a little bit different. We do have some general paperwork because I still want to know medical things and allergies, but we don't have the depth, which can be good and bad, right? There's pros and cons, but something to think about. I lead that trip to Costa Rica, so I will be with you the whole time. I have my wilderness first responder certification, so I can do medical care. Plus, we have amazing in-host country guides, and we have 2 lodges that we set up just like Hog Island, where there's like a lecture hall, and we have like boundaries where you can go. So it feels very much like a Hog Island camp, just in the tropics. That's going to be July 2024. We're gonna take just a couple more questions, and then if you have more that you think of later, then, you know, email us, reach out. Is there any need to bring money? Great question, Peter. I would say Coastal Maine Bird Studies. Oh, well, okay. Both of them, we have on Hog Island a little gift shop. And in the gift shop, we have cool things like puffin shirts and books. Like if you're going to be there doing Coastal Maine Bird Studies 2 or Puffin Islands 1, there are going to be authors like Steve Kress will be there, Scott Weidensaw will be there, and they can sign your books. So there'll be books in the little gift shop, puffin gear, lots of Hog Island hats and things like that. So you could bring some money if you think you want to buy something in the gift shop. All the proceeds go back to the Seabird Institute in Hog Island. So your money's going to a good place. You can get a little sticker or whatever you want. You know, it is a good place if you want to buy a present to take back to someone or just a postcard. I would say maybe you want to bring some money. You're not going to need money for really anything else. My Mountains to Sea kids, I will say, we do have to stop usually once to go to a bathroom at like a convenience store. So I do have sometimes some kids who want to, you know, buy some chips for the van, and that's fine. Let's not get too crazy, but we will probably go to a gas station. So if you want to have a little bit of money, we will have snacks in the van. We'll have homemade granola bars, but you may be like, I just want some chips, and, you know, and we'll have chips too. It's just that sometimes we go to those places and you go to the bathroom and you're going by the aisle and you see your favorite candy. If you have the money, I'm not going to stop you from getting a snack. But we have snacks in the cooler for everybody. So there's always going to be food and snacks and drinks. Perfect. Last question. Any last ones? All right. I think we will end our time together since we're